Jefferson. Here's a 3rd and 7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Two things in life that suck: death, taxes, and 85 will always go.
Welcome to New Stripe City, an urban podcast for diehard Cincinnati Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. I hope you guys had a great 4th of July weekend. Tons of barbecue, tons of fireworks. So I'm pretty sure you guys had a good one. But we'll go ahead and get today's show started. So as usual, we'll start things off with our first segment, press coverage. And our first topic on press coverage is that AJ Green ranked number 16 on the NFL's top 100 list. Also, the Bengals have announced that they will be opening training camp July the 29th at the end of this month. In other news, Duke Tobin says that the roster is not set yet and also confirms that the team has not spoken to Anquan Boldin. And last but not least, Leon Hall has still yet to make his decision on where he will play his football for the 2016-17 NFL season. And we'll start off with our second segment, announcements. So as you guys know, we are on iTunes. You can find us in the iTunes store under New Stripe City. We'd love for you guys to give us a review. Let us know in the comments if you need the link, and we'll also post that in our description. And also, we have our blogger, which you guys are familiar with. That's newstripecity.blogspot.com. For those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, that is where we post all of our material, announcements, articles, polls. So make sure you check that out as well. We're also on SoundCloud. You can find us under the name New Stripe City. So I wanted to get into our Bengals Real Talk segment where we'll talk about the top 100, Pacman Jones, and if he should have been a part, or other Bengals should have been part of the top 100, how to win a playoff game, and Mohamed Sanu versus Tyler Boyd. So starting things off, the NFL had its top 100, and several Bengals made the list, but one that was noticeably missing was Pacman Jones. In my opinion, Pacman Jones should have definitely been included on this list. Let's just look at his stats last year. Last year he had 3 interceptions, he had 53 tackles, a sack, he had 12 passes defended. He only gave up 1 touchdown the entire season, which was a freakish one by Hopkins. He was number 5 overall according to PFF last year, and he also made the Pro Bowl. So when you look at Pacman Jones last year, he was arguably a shutdown corner. The guy was super consistent. You could tell that his technique had changed. It just, everything about the guy. He was playing great football. He was honestly our best player in the secondary last year. Few would really argue that. He was a much needed player, and he helped this secondary tremendously last year. He was the glue. He had great games and great matchups against key receivers. Even though Hopkins beat him for that 1 touchdown, before that he had literally shut Hopkins down. I mean, the guy didn't have any catches barely at halftime. The next half, aside from that touchdown, Hopkins really didn't do anything. He held Amari Cooper in check. He played against some pretty good receivers. AB is another one. And he pretty much held guys in check, and he didn't play undisciplined. He was very disciplined last year. He played good in bump and run. He played good in press man. I mean, what else could you really ask for Adam Jones last year? This guy, in my opinion, should have at least been on the NFL top 100. In my opinion, maybe you swap him out at 92 with Andrew Luck, who really shouldn't have been on the list in the first place because he was horrible last year and he was hurt. So I think that you could slide him into that 92. I think we'll also probably see him make the list where the guys who were close to making the top 100 but were just outside of it. I think it's just outside of the top 100, the list that Jameis Winston made. I think we'll see him on there. Also, I think that Kevin Zeitler should have also possibly made the list. At first, I thought that not too many guards made the list, and then I saw that Richie Incognito made the list. So, in my opinion, I think Zeitler is another guy who's overshadowed, kind of like Big Whit is Andrew Whitworth, and Whitworth just finally got his due this year, which I'll touch on. But I think that Zeitler also was another prime candidate who could have been on this list as well. Not as much as Pacman, but I still think that he could have deserved some recognition on this list as well. So that brings us to our top 100 recap. So as we know, the Bengals had a ton of players on this list, starting off with AJ Green, number 16, Geno Atkins, number 29, Andy Dalton, number 35, Tyler Eifert, number 44, former Bengal Reggie Nelson, number 60, Andrew Whitworth, number 67, and defensive end Carlos Dunlap rounds it off at 70.
Another one.
This just speaks volumes to the talent that we're putting together here in Cincinnati, and a lot of these guys definitely deserve recognition. There were some guys who should have been on these lists in prior years that weren't on there that finally got their recognition, like Andrew Whitworth. How he wasn't on this list last year, I don't understand. Carlos Dunlap, that was well deserved. Tyler Eifert was well deserved. He exploded this year. Reggie Nelson is definitely going to be missed for sure, but he definitely had a great year last year as well. But I would argue that Pacman Jones, honestly, I mean, not stats-wise, but if you're talking about coverage-wise and the best player in the actual secondary, I'd argue that Pacman Jones was actually ranked ahead of Reggie Nelson. Andy Dalton, I feel like, should have been higher than Ben Roethlisberger. No offense, but Ben Roethlisberger's numbers last year weren't really great. If I'm not mistaken, there was 21 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. I mean, Andy, in my opinion, clearly outplayed him. Maybe they're going off of the fact that it's Ben Roethlisberger and the history there. Maybe that's how Andrew Luck made the list. But in my opinion, Andy Dalton for sure was definitely the better quarterback in 2015. Geno Atkins at number 29, I have no qualms with this. AJ Green at 16, I mean, it's AJ Green. I find it hilarious that people try to say that he's not a top 5 receiver, but even his NFL counterparts think that he is. I honestly think he's the best receiver, but we'll leave that topic for another discussion. But of course, AJ Green, as usual, as if I'm not mistaken, the past 5 years, has made this list every single time, so not a big surprise here. That will bring us on to our next subject. How are we going to win a playoff game? I think that there are a multitude of things that we can do. Number one, we need to get a bye. I can't stress how upset I was last year with that game in Denver where we could have controlled our own destiny and locked up a bye, and Mike Nugent decides to shank a field goal. And in my opinion, that was a turning point in the game, because if you make that field goal, you go up 17-0 in the half. It seemed like the Broncos were giving up. It just turned the entire tide of that game. But back to what I'm saying is that a bye is important. In the famous words of Pacman Jones, we need a f***ing bye. Yes, we need one. If we can get that bye, that would set us up pretty good and would allow us to only have to win a couple games or maybe one game just to get into the Super Bowl. This is something that is much needed. Being able to also have that rest. If you looked at last year, after that Steelers game, there were a ton of injuries on both sides. So you looked at guys like Antonio Brown, but also Reggie Nelson got hurt. So that can also help us towards achieving this very first playoff victory. Second, I think that we have to come in with the mindset that we're taking care of business. We have to limit the mistakes, limit the turnovers, any mental lapses. We just need to come to play. We know what we need to do. We know how good we are, and we can use that to our advantage. That brings me to our third recommendation, and I think that that's playing with confidence, knowing that we're a good team. I think a lot of guys get caught up in the headlines and the national story. We're one of the best teams in the NFL, bar none. I mean, it's not really debatable. Look at the team, look at the roster, look at the talent. All we need to do is take care of business, and if we do that, we will definitely be walking away with this playoff win. I also think when it comes to regular season games, we need to take them more seriously, especially the ones who have a lot riding on them, such as buys and such as home field advantage. Those are things that we have to focus on. These aren't things that we can hope to have but look over or overlook, because you never know what's going to happen. I also think the last key is staying healthy. We saw what happened in 2014 when we didn't stay healthy. We did a tremendous job last year of staying healthy. I know last year that there was a new health regimen installed where practices were changed, and a little bit of our health staff helped improve player stability. So I think if we continue on that, then that will be another key factor into us grabbing this playoff win. The last topic I want to touch on is Mohamed Sanu versus Tyler Boyd. And I found a hilarious meme in which Mohamed Sanu is taking his talents to Atlanta, and Tyler Boyd is saying, "Who they family, I got you." So that prompts my question. There was a big debate on Reddit that Mohamed Sanu is better than Tyler Boyd. And in my opinion, I think that Tyler Boyd is a better prospect. He was ranked higher when he came out. He's a more consistent guy. He doesn't drop passes. He's a guy that has hands of glue. He's a quick learner. He was very productive, and he was versatile. He's not as versatile as Mohamed Sanu, but he was still a versatile player. He could also throw passes. He could also take reverses. He could also just line up anywhere. So to me, you're not really losing that much. Mohamed Sanu was a guy that could do a lot of things himself. He could be in the wildcat. He could be on the outside, the inside, which was fine, but he was not consistent, and he didn't produce enough for me. I mean, when his number was called, in some instances when we truly needed him, he simply didn't come through. And to me, I won't even say great. He was an average slot option. When you look at some of the past slot options here, such as Jordan Shipley, you look at Andrew Hawkins, those were guys that, to me, in my opinion, were more explosive, more consistent, and better options, and more fluid in the slot. And when those guys were gone, it was just like we always still had that void there. So to me, I think that Tyler Boyd is a better option. I wish Mohamed Sanu the best. I still feel like Atlanta overpaid for him. That was a lot to pay for Sanu, but I still think that he'll be a decent option in Atlanta. But at the end of the day, I think that the Bengals made the right move with sticking with Boyd, and I'm going to go with Boyd. I think that he's going to be a more consistent option. I think that his ceiling is also higher than Mohamed Sanu. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who was a second-round pick, possibly first, compared to a guy that was a third-round pick to a fourth-round pick when he came out. So, to me, Boyd is the easy answer there. So, that will bring us to our poll, and I asked you guys, which free agent do you see the Bengals signing? And I'll have our selections on our website, also posted on our Twitter. So check newstripecity.blogspot.com. Also check my Twitter at AMBA. Make sure you vote. I like to see who you guys will want. Is it Freeney? Is it Whitner? Is it Leon Hall? Is it Anquan Boldin? So let's see who you guys think that the Bengals should take a chance on with Duke Tobin announcing that our roster isn't set. So let's see what you guys have to say. But in closing, I'd like to say hooday. I hope you guys had a great holiday. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out that new Game of Stripes. And I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday weekend. And as usual, hooday all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.